This is the Schmo with the Pro with one of the best referees in all of MMA, Marc Goddard, here on Fight Island on the Schmo's balcony. How we doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. We've had a good time here. 3 shows in, 1 more to go. It's been a good time.
Now, the Schmo designed this on purpose with the pool in the background. You and the boys have been hogging all the lanes. Helen's been trying to swim, but you're having a good time. You're there every single day. You've been getting some rays.
We have been getting sun, but I've been mindful. I saw Helen swimming, and obviously when I noticed the swimming cap and stuff, I thought, this is a professional thing here. We've got to try and stay out there at the way and let her use the pool for officially what it's been designed for.
Yes, and you certainly know a little bit about professionalism. Congratulations on another year being nominated for the World MMA Awards.
Yeah, that's always nice, you know, with Fighters Only, being up there with the other guys, the other notable officials in the sport. You know, that recognition is good, and obviously ultimately it goes over to the fans, but it's I'm just doing me, you know. It is nice to be mentioned there, but it's not the be-all and end-all for me.
And you do some great work with the IMF?
Yeah, the International Mixed Martial Arts Federation is solely for the youngsters of the sport, the amateurs. And honestly, you know, I know we said before off camera, and I was telling you about, like, it's so important. People don't realise the importance of the amateur scene, because that's how you feed the big shows. You can't, this is not 1999, it's not the year 2000 anymore. You just pluck kids from the streets or from the gyms. These youngsters have got to come through the right way.
Yeah. It's like Major League Baseball. They go through the farm system, the single A, double A, triple A before they get to the big leagues. It's the same thing with MMA. You don't just put on your pair of fighter kits and you get inside the cage and you're a professional fighter. You got to earn the ranks of the amateur system.
100%, you know, and like I always say about, you know, boxing's our closest relative in a combat sports perspective, and you obviously, boxing's steeped in history. We're still a young sport. People didn't realise, like, even at Fight Island, like, there's a lot of, look at Amanda Ribas, lot of heat around her right now. She came from IMAF, she came through the amateur ranks. Peter Yan came through the amateur ranks with WMMA. Young Jack Shaw from Wales, again another exciting prospect. These are all youngsters that have came through the amateur ranks, and it's vitally important.
Yes, indeed. Now let's talk about you. You're 7-6. You have a pro MMA career. Herb Dean had a pro MMA career. Not as many professional fights as you. How come some of the judges that we see in MMA don't have professional MMA careers?
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky. I say lucky, I was fortunate. You know, I grew up in martial arts, and I've spent a long time in MMA when it first came over to the UK, you know, 20 years ago. And yeah, I've been competing most of my life, you know, jiu-jitsu and wrestling and MMA, and I'll never stop training. That's the important part. And it always, being a fighter and a martial artist has always stood me in good stead. But that's not the same for everybody. You know what I mean? Because it's not an automatic rite of passage. As an official, like as a fighter, it was good for me. I wasn't the best in the world, but I won more fights than I lost, and it put me in a good place. I became an official by accident 16 years ago. And, you know, for judges as well, having something to do with the sport is critical. You know, you've got to have trained in at least one or more of the facets of the sport to understand it. You know, everybody's on the case of judges, everybody's on the case of referees too, but
yes,
having a practical background in the sport, for me certainly it was important, and it was a good thing.
Yes, indeed. And now you get some work over at the Crown with some of the other referees. You got the match there, you're practicing, you're rolling, and you mentioned you got into this by accident 16 years ago. What was the accident?
Yeah, first part of your question, in terms of, like I said, you know, I'll train everywhere. I can't not train, you know, having came from martial arts and been fortunate to...
205 or 2 in MMA. Light heavyweight?
Started as a heavyweight because back in the day, and I'm not a heavyweight. Back in the day, people didn't cut weight. Yeah. Then I had a break and then came back at 205. But like as an official, back in 2004, which goes to show just how long it's been, I was supposed to fight in an event. I got injured and I couldn't fight, and the promoter was a friend of mine, and something happened to one of the refs and he said, "Will you referee?" I didn't have time to think about it, and I just jumped in, and the rest is history. It just snowballed from there.
And now we're here making history on Fight Island. Do you have a favorite experience so far here on the island, besides the pool, because I know you enjoy that?
Yeah, no, because obviously when I came home in February we done the UFC in New Zealand.
Yes.
I came home, obviously we were listening all about this coronavirus, and then it just, all hell broke loose, and then all of a sudden the tap was just turned off. From a work perspective, it just stopped. We didn't get a run up at that. That was tough, being at home. Obviously good things out of it, spending more time at home with the family, etc. But not doing any events for 4 months was tough. But then having this kick off now, I mean, you've been here all for the duration. It's incredible.
Incredible here, incredible to be outside and have this interview with you on the balcony. Let's switch it up a little bit here. What's the most gruesome injury that you can recall your time refereeing inside the cage?
Gruesome injury, probably. It's always when people break their legs, tib and fib, and unfortunately I've had that a couple of times. It sounds bad, it looks bad, and it's a hard injury. To obviously the most famous is Anderson Silva, but I've unfortunately had that in at least 2 occasions over the years, and that's pretty hard to stomach.
Is there a fight that you can recall that had the largest crowd interaction? I know you've refereed in front of crowds of 60,000 plus. Is there ever a fight that you can recall where 2 fighters got in and danced inside the cage where they got the loudest crowd reaction, loudest cheers, boos, whatever would be?
Funnily, I was just talking about this last week with, you remember Paddy Houlihan?
Okay, yeah.
The Irish fighter. And I was talking to him on his podcast. And the first time the UFC came to Dublin, the crowd was, the actual O2 arena only holds 9,000. Sounds like 90,000. And I remember we was talking about it. I've been in stadiums. I've reffed in front of 60,000 people. I've reffed 500 people. Cambodia was another memorable thing. There was only a small crowd, but Dublin, pound for pound, you'll never beat that crowd. And I was saying to him, I remember that Dana and all the UFC execs, they were walking out into the arena, and they was looking around as if to get there. Were like, fuck it, there hadn't even been a fight yet. They were out there with the decibel meters and stuff. Pound for pound, I think you'll never beat that Irish crowd.
So a Conor McGregor fight basically is what you're saying.
Pretty much. I mean, he fought the first time they went to Dublin. That was the fight. He fought Diego Brandao, and it was like a movie script, because every single Irish fighter that night won their fight, and then he had his iconic speech afterwards, that not here to take part, take over. The whole night was amazing.
Yeah. The Schmo's got some inspiration from that. The Schmo's not here to take part. We're here to take Schmover in terms of journalism. Now let's talk about something you brought up earlier too. Sometimes you're not the favorites for some of these fighters. They get pissed off at you. I could think of one in particular, Colby Covington. He hasn't said the nicest things about you. How do you stay so neutral? And he even went as far as saying, I don't want this guy ever refereeing my fights again.
Yeah, look, man, as far as Colby Covington goes, I'm a professional. I could not care less what that man says anymore, I've listened to him slander and besmirch me for 6 months, and you just, as a referee, as an official, we're not supposed to respond, and I'm not going to respond. He doesn't know what I put into this game. He doesn't know what I've put into this game, past, present and future tense. As a referee, you're going to make decisions sometimes that's going to please half of the room and upset the other half, and that's just the way it is. It's the nature of the beast. I know what I do, and I know how I do it, and I have integrity, and it's not just here, it's here, Everything I do, all the time, I'm the same. And the guys will tell you I've been the same since I've been refereeing 16 years ago. And sadly, sometimes, you'll get people like Colby. He doesn't understand, save your shtick for your opponents. It's not for me, You get upset with me, it's no problem. There's plenty of other referees. Of course, I'm not going to officiate another one of his fights. It is what it is, man. I don't. There's been 100 times I could respond publicly, but where's that going to get me? You got to rise above it and kill it with kindness.
High standards. We can totally understand that. Now let's talk about something like title fights, because obviously a lot more is on the line. And a lot of guys want to put everything in there, go out on their shield. Do you weigh title fights a little bit heavier for stoppages and situations than you would for normal fights? Because we just had a title fight here. Deiveson Figueiredo, Joseph Benavidez, and you were part of that.
Yeah, 100%. You got to... It's common sense. Am I going to referee 2 amateur fighters the same as I'm going to referee 2 guys for the biggest prize in the sport? Clearly not. And obviously that Figueiredo fight, I was getting shtick after that because people are talking about, oh, you were late. Listen, I know what I'm doing. I'm not beyond reproach. I'm not perfect. I'm there, but I know what I'm doing. In that fight, is a classic case in point. Benavidez, he was getting, knocked from pillar to post. He just couldn't get his groove. Figueiredo pounced on him early. He hurt him early. But you'll notice in that fight, obviously, people are on about, well, why do you stop that fight or you don't stop this fight? That fight was 1 round old. Benavidez was in a world of shit, but he was doing everything to show me he's still trying to recover and still trying to get back in that fight. And then when it came to the end, obviously with the rear naked choke, the reactions we're looking for, when it finally got in and it sunk in, I already know I have to let that guy go out. I cannot stop that fight 1 second before, because if I do stop it 1 second before and he's not out and he sits up like, the Undertaker or whatever it may be, I'm going to be trashed. It's, people need to get over the preciousness of this. This is fighting. The name of the game is, you can't get away from the fact that 2 guys are in there and they're damaging each other for as long as it lasts. Obviously, my job is I need to prevent that when it becomes unnecessary. And that was a particular fight. I wouldn't do one thing different. People are on there, the broadcaster seeing them react. I have to be sure that guy is technically unable to continue. And unfortunately, he did sustain a fair bit of damage before that, but it's a world championship contest. And I'm sure, listen, go and ask Joseph what he thought of the stoppage. I know that guy, the first thing he said to me when he came around, he looked at me and said, please tell me I went out. He said, what happened? Tell me I went out. So he's already telling me, you're not stopping the fight. I need to go out on my shield. And that's what you have to, sometimes you have to let that happen.
Absolutely. It's the hurt business. There's so much on the line. It's everything for these gents and ladies. And you understand that. But what was going on with the air horn at the beginning of the fight card? I saw you regulating everything. I know you weren't controlling that, but you were making sure business was getting taken care of.
Good of you to spot that. Yeah, because what happened, there was a potential malfunction with the air horns. And obviously, I think we should go to bells. We should go to I know it's a boxing thing versus MMA, but excuse me, when you see when you have a bell, a mic'd up bell, it's a mechanical thing that can't go wrong. With the air horns, what was happening was the canisters were full, but I think the actual attachment, the plastic trigger on top, it wasn't sitting too good. And then when he was pressing it, it may have wobbled a little bit. And, that's something else. You imagine an official. I've been in arenas where a classic one was Aldo Mendes 2 in Brazil. Aldo was the last guy with a belt. Brazilian crowds are crazy and passionate. I didn't hear the bell. I actually couldn't hear it, And when you think about it in fighting, it's a potentially dangerous thing. But I was just trying to get it smooth for the TV and just remedy the situation.
Man, with so much knowledge, the Schmo's getting a workout talking to you. Do you got a final message for the Marc Goddard fans out there worldwide?
Yeah, the fans of this sport, there's some incredibly knowledgeable people who understand what we do, you know, and I want to thank the people that understand what we do and how we do it and why we do it. And I'm just going to keep doing me and keep doing what I can for the fighters. It's always about them.
A class act. Now let's go do some cannonballs this afternoon in the pool. He's the pro, I'm the schmo. I'm schwitzing through this shirt. I'm sure you are too, but you're wearing white.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate your time. We're out.